Well, how about let's go back to some of the other. You may be a prideful jerk.
You might be prideful. Yeah.
How about the old road rage?
Oh yeah,
anger, intimidation.
I mean, that's a battle that's not worth winning. Because I'll just share real quick.
You mean the road rage?
The road rage.
Yeah.
I was on 71 over there by Red Bank Road one night, and I was fully in the lane when the truck started over in my lane. I happened to see his turn signal, and I sped up. He saw me, and for whatever reason, it made him mad. So he pulls in behind me, and he's right on my bumper of my Mustang. I had a Mustang convertible. And what did I do? I wasn't a Christian then. I want to say that. I won't say that I'm above
we
it.
have BC.
BC.
AC.
I rolled the window down. I stuck my hand up. And the next thing that happened, I'm just going to tell you, this is where I changed my whole posture. It was like French Connection. This guy was in a bobtail without a trailer. I had no idea a truck like that could move like it could. I was trying to navigate traffic. He was running it off the road.
Strong Dads wants to thank 4Speed on 50 for sponsoring today's show. If you like classic cars, great food, and a taste of Americana, you have to visit 4Speed on 50's Diner, located on Route 50 in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Stop in today for a meal and an experience you won't soon forget at 4Speed on 50's Diner. Welcome to Strong Dads. It's Merle Hutchinson alongside of Carl Andrew again, getting ready to bring you another good show. Another great show, I should say. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, it's a privilege.
You crawled through the door today.
Oh, did I? Don't say that.
But you came back.
I was humble.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm the humblest one here. You can't out humble me.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's a whole show in itself.
Well, hey, last time we had a good conversation, and I think at the risk of always sort of airing our own dirty laundry, I think sometimes that's a good connection point for people to understand that people are not really on the islands that they may think they're on.
No.
Like I'm by myself. No one's not quite like me. And it's like, nah, I think we're probably a lot more alike than we are not. And we shared like our own struggles with pride and how we masked it differently. I mean, there's that pride of that arrogance and chest bumping and thumping and all that stuff. But you and I both kind of came to, well, ours was a little different, and it was more of anxiety.
Yeah. And depression. Substance abuse for me.
Yeah. And hiding and trying to figure out how you'd weave through to not be found out in some way. And here you get through a pretty good chunk of life pulling that off. Right?
A lot of life, most of my life.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, well, in the counseling world, we sometimes look at people who are not doing things that are good, and we say, "How's that working for you?"
Yeah.
And well, when you do something for 30-some years, you're like, "Well, it kind of is working for me."
Yeah. Is there another way?
Yeah.
Doesn't everybody do this?
Yeah, and so you become somewhat fooled into thinking that this does work, and it does work until it doesn't, right? And so that's kind of what we talked about. So, if you didn't get a chance to listen to our last show, go back and just see if some of that connects with you. Just about kind of finding out a different face of pride, but we're gonna go a little bit deeper today. Did you wear your steel toes?
Oh,
because we're going to be stepping on our toes and everybody else's.
Yeah. I didn't think to wear my steel toes. I should have. Actually, it's not so much steel toes as it's going to be a filleting knife that I'm more afraid of here. So.
All right. Well, Carl, thanks for coming back
Thanks for having me again.
Looking forward to this. Let me thank our sponsors, and let's just get rolling right into our topic and discussion today. All right. Let's thank Quality Auto Mart, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and 4Speed on 50 Diner for sponsoring the Strong Dads podcast. So we greatly appreciate their willingness to come alongside of us. We also just thank all of you guys that are out there listening. And, as we say all the time, subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, all those things. And it's not really about us. It's about if you think the message is listen, there's all kinds of messages always being put out. And, what kind of messages do you want want to be out there that are of quality. And if you think it's a quality message, then please do that for us. Also share the shows. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I find. Typically, Carl, when I am thinking about putting a show together, I have somebody in my head.
Yeah.
Either somebody I've worked with or whatever,
Yeah.
or myself even, like today's show is a little bit, So you might hear a show and go, yeah, someone's mind or eye is popping up into your mind. So anyway.
Well, on that note, real quick, and I want to jump in there and say, we're going to be talking about diagnosing pride today, the symptoms of pride.
Well, we are doctors.
Yes,
we ought to be
we are
able to do
doctors.
this.
We have a vast amount of experience in the school of pride. But if you think that this isn't for you, you're probably right in the right place. I'm going to tell you that right now. So don't tune out.
You're sounding a little bit like Jeff Foxworthy.
Jeff Foxworthy.
You may be.
You may be. In fact, I'm sure we're going to use that a lot today. We're going to get into that. You may be prideful if. But I also want to say, stay tuned. If you're a Christian, especially, stay tuned to the end, because we're really going to touch on what I think are two of the most tragic aspects of pride that destroy so many people's walk, that keeps them from the ultimate joy and freedom, and also keeps them from even coming to Christ, and once they're with Christ, actually experiencing the full grandeur of Christ. So that's important, but we've got a lot to cover.
Yeah, we do. So, and let's just go with it. Let's just see where our conversation goes.
All right.
How about I want you to start, because I know you've thought about some different things about this. Like, what are some of the things that you would diagnose or that you've seen in yourself or others that you go, yeah, this was one way that I've seen it?
Well, I know for me, I'm going to speak. I don't want to sound from a clinical standpoint. These are my issues with pride and how they manifested in my life. The first time I heard I was a perfectionist, I couldn't relate to that. That was early on in recovery with a psychologist. And I thought a perfectionist was somebody who kept their house spotless, who everything was in place and everything. I was anything but that. But I didn't realize that being a perfectionist and being subject to perfectionism was really requiring more of yourself or others than they're willing or able to deliver. Yeah. So I always had this high bar because I was afraid of looking like a failure or looking stupid. I was constantly ruminating about that. We talked about the anxiety in the previous program, but I had such an expectation of myself that I was over the top, and that's what perfection is. It just ate me up. Yeah. So that was one of them.
Yeah.
You want to throw one back on that?
Well, I do want to hover around that for a second, because I think I'm not sure if I'm right or wrong on this, because this might step on people's toes, but I've been in lots of different planning groups and stuff, and they don't use the word perfection. And I could be wrong on this. So
excellence.
Yeah,
it's
they hide behind that. They say, I do everything with excellence, with excellence. And and I get that. Like, I get the idea, no, you want to give your best, but I don't I'm having a hard time separating perfection from excellence.
Yeah.
And because sometimes you are I'm going to give my best in that moment. Like right now, as I do this, you're getting the best that you're getting right now.
This is as good as I can do.
Yeah. I'm going to be focused. I'm going to try to do my job here. But excellence is that weird thing that I think you find that in the business world. I think you find it in the church world. Like, everything's with excellence. And it's like, no, we're humans.
Yeah.
You're human, so you're going to have flaws. You're going to have issues. So the faster we get into just accepting people where they are, I think the more we can actually get the mask off and deal with things. But I don't know what your thought is on that. I'm not trying to give a shortcut to say you shouldn't do things well.
No, and I think we're going to. These are standalone episodes, so what we're going to do here is give everybody a headache, and and then I think in the next episode we're going to give you the cure. And I think we'll touch on this more later. Excellence is doing to the best of your ability what God has led you to do.
Yeah.
And what I was into was not God. It was about Carl.
It was Carl, yeah.
It was about showing Carl. It was about what I thought Carl should do and be and everything like that. So excellence, and we'll talk about true humility in the next episode. That's where the power really is. It took me a long time to realize that. But when people mask things with excellence, Sometimes it's their own perfectionism. If you're competitive, it's extreme competitiveness. If you can't lose, you can't play.
Right.
So, there's that expectation that shows up there too. And for me, the perfectionism, it branched out into arrogance because I was hard. I was always a hard driver, and people that worked with me would think I was arrogant or too curt at different times, or expected too much. I've done that with people around me, and there's always that understanding. Hey, listen, whatever's coming out of my mouth toward you is only maybe a half power of what's going on in my head.
Yeah.
The expectations I put on me then bled over to others, which is devastating.
Yeah, but and let me be clear, it's the expectation because you don't want to be looked at or seen as a failure or wrong. Like, in other words, your name's going to be on this, and what black mark would you have on you if it didn't go well?
That's part of it. Part of it is, too, I expect others to have the same set of beliefs that I have.
Right.
So, one of the problems I've had, just to be honest, or frank, is that in the workplace, I expected everybody to work at the same level that I did and to be striving and doing. And the reality, Pareto principle or whatever is 80-20 rule.
80-20, yeah.
You find that that's pretty much true. And
Right.
there's extreme examples of that, to see somebody else who's being rewarded or paid to do a job and they're doing nothing,
Yeah.
or they're not really pushing themselves. My father and I used to argue about the union for years. He was an auto worker, and I'd hear these things and I'd just be appalled. And we finally, I'm not knocking unions, but I would, how you defend that,
Right.
And everybody. So it wasn't just that, it was this idea of fairness.
Yeah.
Maybe it's jealousy, envy. We'll get into all that with anger.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, there's so many different avenues here. The idea here of there's terms that I don't think I ever heard this term probably 15 years ago, but in the last 10 years, gaslighting.
Yeah.
Gaslighting.
And a lot of terms that we haven't heard in the last few years.
But now that once I kind of learned, what is that about? How much I've actually used that. Basically, kind of making somebody else in the house or your wife or whatever, you're the one that's crazy. You must be misunderstanding me. You must have not heard me correctly. In other words, it's what you're doing that's making this.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Yeah.
The shifting blame.
Yeah, and it's the shifting of the blame, which is me trying to keep myself up on the pedestal of, see, I still got this right and you don't. Right?
Or not looking stupid.
Yeah,
if you can get, I heard a saying years ago, happiness is not knowing who to blame. And a lot of people, and myself included, we're always doing it. One of the things that has always intrigued me, and this is maybe later in the notes, but I was always impressed with the line in the Bible where Moses says, who should I say sent me? And he says, tell them I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives me goosebumps, because my whole goal in life, I think, is to get to a point where I can say that without qualifiers. To say I am and not feel like you have to explain yourself to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And now there's times that it's going to happen because you need to be accountable or something like that. But the other side of that is to always be trying to explain why you're doing something or your motives behind it, because what's behind that is your own pride. You don't want to look stupid, and you think somebody might think that. When God says, tell them I am, it just almost wrecks me.
Yeah.
I can't explain it because it's so simple.
Yeah. Well, you just, in marriage work, we talk about learning the authentic apology. And the authentic apology is really simple. I'm sorry for being a jerk, right? Or I'm sorry and then stopping. But way too often, this is the pride. I'm sorry for being a jerk. But when you said that,
right?
And so we talk about no buts and no becauses. Because
great point.
The buts and becauses are the qualifiers that basically put me back up on top.
Right.
And it's really your issue. It's not mine.
Right.
And but I mean, we see it all the time.
Happiness is knowing who to blame, and that idea that you're trying to shift it back around. Say, I only acted this way because of you.
Yeah.
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 You're in control.
Yeah.
And I hope to one day get to the point where I can just say I am. Not necessarily walk around and go to everybody, but in my heart to say I'm centered. I know I'm not perfect. I'm forgiven. I am. this is what God made. This is what God intended. This is what God wants me to do.
And to have peace with that.
And to be
right?
peace, because when Jesus says, you will know strife in this world, if you have these symptoms, you're not going to weather that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we're headed.
Yeah.
So the sooner you realize that I am thing for yourself, and we're getting way out in the weeds here possibly, the stronger you're going to be here, because I've experienced this. I've experienced what it's like to take steps and be very unpopular.
Yeah.
And the wrestling that goes on with it, which is what is really pride.
Yeah. Well, how about let's go back to some of the other. You may be a prideful jerk.
You might be prideful. Yeah.
How about the old road rage?
Oh yeah.
Anger, intimidation. Right.
Yeah.
I know people who have pride in that.
Being prideful about how they showed somebody else
like
up,
they can't wait to say, and I flipped that guy off. And I'm like, really, you feel good about that?
Yeah.
But I think it's that sense of I held my ground. No one's going to tread on me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, were they really trying to tread on you?
Yeah. You better pick your battles well. I mean, that's a battle that's not worth winning. Because I'll just share real quick.
You mean the road rage?
The road rage.
Yeah.
I was on 71 over there by Red Bank Road one night, and I was fully in the lane when the truck started over in my lane. And I happened to see his turn signal, and I sped up. He saw me, and for whatever reason, it made him mad. So he pulls in behind me, and he's right on my bumper of my Mustang. I had a Mustang convertible. And what did I do? I wasn't a Christian then. I want to say that. I won't say that I'm above
we
it.
have BC
and
BC. AC.
I rolled the window down. I stuck my hand up. And the next thing that happened, I'm just going to tell you, this is where I changed my whole posture. It was like French Connection. This guy was in a bobtail without a trailer. I had no idea a truck like that could move like it could. I was trying to navigate traffic. He was running it off the road.
Oh, wow.
To get to me. And the guy is screaming out the window to where I can hear him through the convertible top.
Holy smokes.
The only way I got away from him, and we were flying now, I had no idea. We got up to Pfeiffer Road, and there were two trucks and a gap between them, and I shot off of that ramp. It's a wonder I didn't go airborne.
Yeah.
I went between those trucks because he was behind me, and he couldn't stop and get over. And I decided right then, I'm not even going to look.
Yeah.
If I do something stupid or somebody else does something stupid, the other side of it is just a short time after that, up on 75, I saw an accident. The aftermath, the dust was still settling. 3 men's bodies in the median. And it turns out it was road rage. 2 in one car, 1 in the other. They got thrown out. And I'm like, folks, it ain't worth it. This is just not worth it. But your pride gets in the way.
Yeah.
And this is an area where it can be fatal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's the same thing with social media. People can hide behind the wheel. Like if I'm face to face with you, you're a considerably bigger man than me. And so I'm going to watch my words around you because it would just take one hit from you, right?
So if I was smaller, you'd be abusive?
I would be more likely to push the envelope. But like we're distant, right? You can't catch me. I'm in a car or I'm in the truck. Well, social media is even worse. The stuff that I hear and I read, and I'm like, and I really on social media, I have gone totally. I mean, I post some of the business stuff, some of the ministry stuff, but I don't comment on anything because I'm like, no, you talk about a mask that people wear and hide behind. And I think, no, I just don't even want to get into that game.
What do they call them? Keyboard warriors or something like that? Is there a name like that? So anyway.
You got another one? You may be a prideful jerk if.
Oh, well. There's so many. We have a list here, and we could go forever. We're not going to. But
how about this one? Because any of you ladies out there, you may be a prideful jerk if you refuse to ask for directions, even when your GPS is yelling at you.
I will say I don't have that problem. I saw you put that down. And I'm thinking I am quick to ask for directions, but I hear about people doing that. Yeah. But go ahead. You got some stories about that for yourself?
Hey, this is funny because GPS has really saved us from a lot of that whole direction thing, but. I have another one in here, and hon, just forgive me, but I can't help not to point this out. Linda, my wife, is a very she's a quick thinker and quick speaker. And when she speaks with confidence. Like a lot of times, if I don't know something, you'll hear the hesitation, like, yeah. And you almost never see that out of Linda. And so, over the years, we'd be driving down the road, and she'd, we'd be like, which way here, before the GPS, and she'd say, "Oh, up here, you take a right." And I mean, just as quick and confident as that. And I would just like, must be a right. And even though there'd be a gut instinct in me that would be like, I don't think that's right. But I was never strong enough to go, no, it's a left.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we'd go up there and I'd just blindly follow. And we get 5 miles down the road and I'd be like,
this doesn't look right.
Are you kidding me? And so, I coined the phrase with her, like, she's the most confidently wrong person. And I don't mean that. I'm just like, she says it with conviction.
Yeah.
But it also makes her come across very solid and got it together. And there are a lot of leaders that way. And we want that in a leader, right? If a leader stands in front of the group and goes,
no.
Yeah, we've talked about Band of Brothers many times, right?
Yeah.
It's like, listen, and when you're getting ready to go into battle, whether we do the right thing or the wrong thing, we better do it with a determined
You better commit.
Yeah. And so there are those people. And so it has come to be that now, like, if I have any hesitation, I'm like, nope, we're either asking for directions or because I'm not going to follow where she's at. But anyway,
and I don't say this about Linda because I don't know. You can't look at other people and say their motive. I have had that in my life to where I felt you had to have an answer, you had to have it quick because that shows that you are worthy, competent, or whatever it is. What it is pride. You're afraid. For me, you're afraid of looking like I don't know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you try to have this rapid response, and that's dangerous. The Bible's pretty clear. I've done it enough that be slow to speak.
Yeah.
And I need to work on that. So I like one of them. You've got your unwillingness to apologize.
Oh man.
And the devastation by criticism. We can probably get both of those under the same thing. When somebody criticizes you and you're so defensive, and then what ensues is this battle, and then you've really done some damage, and then the inability to apologize.
Yeah.
When somebody's trying to speak truth, especially when somebody's trying to speak truth in your life, those are two great points.
Well, I think one of the things that you see in the counseling world is when you are speaking with somebody and you're delivering some critical news of some sort, and they can't hear it, they don't want to hear it, and so you'll see their face sort of change, and right away they're no longer listening to you. They're formulating their shield or their weapon.
Their war plan.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I've been guilty. Like, if you criticize me and I'm not comfortable with it, I'm going to be quick to point out one of your flaws.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, that could be true about me, but
right.
And I'll throw it back at you. And it's like, and teaching people to sit in the criticism. When our boys went off into the military, and I don't know, like when I was 18 and I was thinking about military and stuff like that, the whole idea of just being yelled at and screamed at was like, I don't think I want to deal with that. But I think, to talk with them about, remember when you were a football player and the coach was yelling at you, don't hear the yell, hear the message.
Yeah.
Just hear the message, but you hear the emotion and you get all freaked out.
Yeah.
But if you just could hear the message, there's probably some truth in that.
And don't internalize it as something personal.
Yeah.
It's an overall game plan.
Yeah.
Something came to mind, though, that I didn't actually have on these lists, and I figure we haven't really talked about this, that it could be a whole show in itself. And it's a diversion from what we're talking about here. Big signs of pride, and having taught financial peace, is the purchases of things to impress others. And I'm not against fine things. I'm just not. I look at the new Corvette, and I think that is
a pretty hot car.
It's a hot car, but from doing what I do for a living, developing prototypes and designs, it's just an astounding piece of work. I think for the price, I just have an appreciation for it. Have I bought one? I could. I don't have the desire anymore, but I can appreciate that. I think we're a lot with finances, and we could get into that. And I've seen the devastation. Dave Ramsey puts it really well. Buying things you don't need with money you don't have to impress people who really don't care.
Yeah.
So, that's an entire thing. But doing anything, and that's an outward type. It's sort of separate from these internal kind of flaws that we have that tear us apart. And this can contribute. Doing anything to impress somebody, owning anything to impress somebody, to try to make yourself be more than what you feel you are, that's a dangerous thing. And I've seen the devastation of that in debt, bankruptcies, things like that. And just stress.
Yeah.
I mean, people are under stress. So I actually didn't even have that on my list, but it's a biggie.
But as you're talking, let me flip the coin on that and go, I think this is just as much of a sticky wicket. Seeing the guy in the Corvette.
Oh, yeah.
And going, he's a jerk.
Yeah.
He's driving through the neighborhood with the big, beautiful homes that are, twice your home or whatever, and going, yeah, these people are probably all snobs. You know what I mean? Like,
or they're broke.
Yeah, or they're broke. Like being critical because you somehow are going to cast judgment on. You don't even know how or what they're doing. Yeah. But looking at the other side, like. You've heard that story before. The guy who paid $100,000 for his Corvette, and people are like, "Well, what a waste of money!" And he comes back with, "Well, this is how many families that I was able to feed." All the people who worked on that Corvette, all the people, like
employed.
Yeah. And so, and it's like, but instead we have the critical eye of the guy who's driving the vet. But wait a minute, like there is good that comes from that, and I appreciate you saying. Just because I don't get it doesn't mean you have an eye for the engineering and the
drives Linda crazy.
Yeah. But you go, wow, I know that's a gift.
Oh, yeah.
That's a gift for a guy to be able to create something or a group or whatever. But some of us, if we don't have that gift, that was a waste of time. That's a waste of money.
Yeah.
Right there.
I've said for years, until you've done a job, you don't really appreciate what it takes. Most people look at this from the outside of things. I just looked at that car when it first came out. I'm not trying to say you should need to go out and buy it, but it's just a phenomenal piece of engineering and work that especially, I call it the poor man's exotic car.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing work. And I can appreciate that. The difference in those things crosses over when you need that to make yourself feel better, to impress other people.
If I just had this.
And you touched on something that, excuse me, the difference between envy and jealousy. So envy is wanting what somebody else has. Jealousy is being angry because they have it.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that for a long time. I thought they were kind of the same thing. They are in the same vein, but they're not the same.
Yeah.
And you just touched on something. When you cross over that line and become judgmental, trying to minimize, we should applaud accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And people do not realize, especially for business owners, people who have invented things, you just don't realize what it takes to get something started and to accumulate wealth. There's such a big taboo about that. And a lot of people do it for the wrong reasons. I'll be the first to say that. That there's back to the Corvette. I think it's good to have things, but I'm really wrestling with this at what stage you cross over there. In the Bible it says, I'll build bigger barns, and accumulate more. How much is enough? And when have you crossed the line? If you fool, for tonight this will be taken from you.
Yeah.
So that's a fine line. But jealousy, envy, those are aspects of pride, and they manifest themselves in different ways.
Yeah. Well, it goes a little bit into the armchair quarterbacking. Before you know it, the football season will be starting back up. And the idea that people second guess what everybody else is doing, whether it's out on the field or with their money. Well, if I were you, I would have.
Yeah.
It's like why did we have to go there, I guess.
Yeah. Somebody asked me that question last night. What do you think about this decision? It's not my place to tell you to spend your money.
Yeah.
I have a philosophy based on what I teach, but it's not my place to tell you what your priorities are.
Yeah.
It really isn't. Now, I've seen people that I had to talk into their lives because they were about to lose everything, and you try to work on that. An aspect of pride that I don't think most people consider, and we talked about this actually before we started the show, is treating other people outside of your loved ones and family better. And it may sound like what? And I believe you have company, you should honor company and accommodate company. But if you have more patience, if you are less argumentative, if you are kinder, if you have more grace, if you extend all these things to people outside of your family, I can almost guarantee you it's pride. Because the people that are closest to you, those family members and your loved ones, should get your best. It's not saying you shouldn't be a good host.
Right.
But I experienced this, and I have done this, to be short-tempered when I wouldn't ever do that, like with you,
Right.
with my wife, or even the kids. So, it took me a while. I think I told you it was a book called Flying Boy. I'm ever so aware of it. But if you do this, it's probably because you want to be seen better by people outside your family than your own family.
Yeah.
And that's just not authentic.
Which is that seeking of approval and connection with others, where you make the assumption that you're already accepted and approved of by the people in your inner circle, so you can kind of dump on them.
Well, it's not only that. There's this story after story. I think you know them. People who are absolute butts in the home and popular, movers, shakers, doing things. I don't care if it's ministry. I don't care if it's business, whatever it is. There's a disconnect. And what's happening is they are wanting the applause of the world more than they want the love, security, and affections and to build those people around them up as well. They're putting their energy into those outside. And almost always it's driven by pride.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's my opinion.
No, I totally am on board with that. There's another side too that I see, a lack of healthy empathy. There is such a thing as unhealthy empathy.
Yeah.
Owning, like you see that in my world, counselors owning everybody else's issues, and it becomes a great burden around them. But we are to love our neighbor and to be one with the neighbor and to try to, like, hey, your house just burnt down. I can feel some of your pain. And the idea that I don't want to feel anybody's pain.
Oh, yeah.
I don't, listen, it's a bad problem, but it's your problem.
Right.
So the lack of empathy on people's part keeps them protected from going down those emotional roads. And I think I just don't want to get dirty by other people's issues.
I don't want to get caught up.
Yeah. Because I'm too busy. I'm way too busy. I'm important in my own little world. And so you just see a coldness in people, and again, like, there's a fine line, right? Yeah. But when you see some people, you're just like, wow, that guy's just a jerk. Like, it really is all about him.
Yeah.
So that lack of empathy and trying to just sit in somebody else's issue with them for a bit is something that you see is like, no, you got too much of your own stuff going on.
Well, let me take one of those famous lines. I'll pray for you.
Oh man.
And you think, did you? I mean, or are you just trying to look good in the moment? Are you trying to, deflect the messiness, whatever it is, and just stay aloof from that? And this is,
I don't really have to invest.
Yeah.
And I probably won't even, because I probably won't even pray.
Well, that's the question. Yeah. Are you really praying? You say something like that. I hate to tell you this. At least in my opinion, there's a scorecard upstairs. It's like, hey, you said,
you got 10 of them this week and you not done one.
Yeah. Or you like, another thing real quick is that, the gossipy kind of thing. Oh, did you hear about that poor thing?
Oh,
bless her
God
soul.
bless her soul.
It's like, you better get ready, because the dirt is getting ready to fly.
Yeah, we're going to throw some dirt.
Yeah. So, can I jump?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
go ahead.
So on the other side of that, being the person that needs the prayer. Another characteristic of mine that has been devastating, that has caused me a great deal, I don't know if you're doing it right, it's sulking and withdrawal.
Okay.
So when you're prideful, and even if you've taken a stand for the right thing, or just something's happened in your life to pull back the curtain, you feel it's not fair, or you feel you've been mistreated, or you feel the system is corrupt. I'm guilty of all these things. I withdraw and I sulk. Now, I used to say, and I think there's some truth to this, I'm reformulating a game plan or sorting things out. When I lost all my money, I was devastated because my pride, there was definitely a lot of pride, but I also needed to sort out a new ideology. So there's that side of it. But I think if you're going off and sulking, and then I'll touch on one of the other things that I don't think I've said it yet. Imagined slights.
Help me with that. I don't know that I've heard that, which maybe
you
just
walk through
ignorant.
you walk through a crowd and you think they're mad at me. And
Almost like a paranoia.
it's a paranoia. They're mad at me because it's about you. You know, you're thinking you've done something, and you're living. And especially when I was young, everything around you is like a wind. It's pushing you. A person may be thinking about the fight they had with their spouse, and they've got a sour look on their face, and you internalize
You
that.
think it's about you.
Or codependency or narcissism, whatever you want to stick to it. But imagine slights and hurts. You know, that somebody may have said something in a way to you that you interpret one way and they meant it another.
Yep.
But you're always on the lookout because you're prideful, insecure, whatever it is that you, and then it's hell. I'll just put it that way. It was a good part of the anxiety I had was fed by that, of having these barometers all around you. And if you have that many instruments that are feeding into the system, you're going to get a lot.
Yeah, you're getting bombarded.
You're getting bombarded and pushed around. That's me.
Yeah. You said something before that I think it does fall into the prideful way. In fact, I know it does fall in the prideful way because we talked about praying for people. But one of the things that I just realized that I am so guilty of, not asking for prayer.
Oh,
I keep all my stuff to myself, as if I'm going to handle it.
Yeah.
I don't want
to burden you.
I'm not even good at asking for help.
Yeah.
I'm not. I got a project going on. I'm like, I just do it myself. And I don't want people in too tightly to my inner circle. I don't want people knowing, like I just had my knee replaced, and, my wife, Linda, she's quick about like, let's pray or put it on the prayer chain or whatever. And I'm like, don't put, there's people with a whole lot worse stuff going on than me. Don't put that on there. And it's really about me not wanting to be seen or a spotlight on me. And it's like, well, how far is too far on that? Obviously we don't need be praying about a pimple on somebody's face, but like it's
my mom used to pray for parking spots. I don't it seemed to work.
Pray for whatever you need to pray for.
I used to think it was silly, but why do we feel that way? And then it would open up and she'd look at me.
You always wonder why you're at the front. That was before handicap spots. You guys were always in the front spot.
Yeah, well, after they saw me, we were able to get one of those placards before a woman.
You're bad.
But along that line, that is actually one of the things I thought about, and it's been another area of really big pride or problems for me is not being able to not only ask for help, but being able to accept the good. We had an offer to us, Linda and I, that was in hindsight was incredible, and I backed up because I felt it just didn't make sense to me that somebody would be doing this. My paranoia or whatever. Who does this? And we passed. And every time I see this thing, I won't say what it is. It's just like, oh, you dummy, and it's like, and that's another area of pride is regret, big regret, living in the past, but not being able to accept a compliment. We'll talk about that as the part of the cure. True humility, though, is not being any more or less than you are. And if this is something that is true, to be able to say, well, thank you, to accept that.
Yeah.
If you're prideful, that's hard. To ask for help, accept the good in your life that comes your way.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say I got one more word because getting the last word.
This isn't the last word, though.
No, wait, it is now because the idea of in conversation, of being with people or whatever, and always having to deliver the last funny or deliver the last word
or an argument
like I'm going to slam my fist and I'm going to put the closure exclamation point on what we're talking about. Like the idea that I have to be the closer is that prideful thing.
Right. That I won.
I won.
I triumphed. Whether it's win or triumph in the moment, that I shined. Outshined, if it might be what it is. Yeah.
Man, we've gone through a bunch. You have any more? I don't know. There's so many more. You got some more?
I'll tell you one I talked about earlier was I'm different. And I don't think you quite caught that earlier.
Well, I didn't at first when you said it, yeah.
I'm going to say, personally, especially coming from a background where I abused alcohol and things, and I think you see this happen all the time, a prideful thing to say to yourself is, yeah, but I'm different. When you see people devastated by alcohol or gambling or porn or whatever it is, we can go down and having an affair or anything like that. Almost always, in the 12-step program, they have something called, it's not the caboose that kills you, it's the locomotive. It's that first thing. So most often we have some sort of, if we have any kind of consciousness, we have some sort of awareness. We've seen other lives devastated. We've seen people die possibly from that. But a lot of what we do is in our pride, we say, yeah, but I'm different. And then you're a casualty. That, I think, is a big thing that takes a lot of people. Yeah, but I'm different. I can handle this.
Right. Yeah, and how do you find, well, you're talking mostly here right now about alcohol, but it could be drugs.
It could be
or
anything.
Yeah, but
Greed.
The majority, the vast majority of people who take a drink do not have problems with alcohol.
Right.
I mean, that's just the truth. Most people drink and do not have a problem with it. But, how do you know, and what is the process that one would go through to say, oh my gosh, and this is going to be part of the cure part too, of how do I accept the idea that I am that one that does have a problem, because there's a lot of things that we could have problems with, but we don't.
I don't know that we can answer that in probably the time we have today, but I would say this. I heard a saying one time, and it just caught me up. You're only one thought away from the most heinous act you can imagine. And I think, I've seen in my life really good people that were tragedies. So I don't kid myself about what's possible.
Yeah.
I've seen people fall. I've seen people very close to me fall. People who were godly people fall. And I don't kid myself. And I think that's what this is. You're kidding yourself a lot of times. You can't take fire, like the Bible says, you can't take fire into your lap and not be burned.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people in their pride, in their self-confidence, false self-confidence, don't believe that they're capable of certain things. And I don't think there's a whole lot off the table under the right circumstances. And especially being in recovery early on, I was very cognizant. I tried to be very cognizant of those factors that take you.
Yeah.
It's with drinking, and we get into that another time. It doesn't happen in that moment.
Right.
It happened days or weeks or years before that there was a process set in motion.
Yeah.
And you're caught up in it, and you don't realize you have this stinking thinking. But that's sort of along the lines here. It's like, I can handle it. I'm going to linger a little longer with this woman at the office after hours. Yeah. I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. It's okay. I can handle it. It's just innocent fun. We are all we're susceptible. This is maybe off the path. In this last week, my mom's down at a home, and I've been talking to people who are not in the Alzheimer's area. And one particular person said, I never thought I would be in this position. I never thought this would happen to me. They're in a wheelchair now. Within a very short period of time, 11 months from living independent to being in a wheelchair. And she said, I don't feel God anymore. Folks, I'm going to tell you, I touched on this last time, I fully believe in Satan. He's patient. He uses a lot of things.
Yep.
He may wait till your very last 6 months of life and inflict a pain on you, get you going and things like that. I don't kid myself about the powers that are out there. So I don't know if that's connected or not.
Yeah, that's never say never.
Never
right?
say never.
Never say never. And it's your pride that would keep you from saying never. As we start to wrap some of this up, the whole idea of, well, where is this pride coming from? And this pride is this whole, I look at it as it's our way of protecting ourself. And we just went through a big list, and hopefully some of those, well, hopefully they didn't. Hopefully none of them hit home with you. But then you're a liar.
Yeah,
So then
you probably can walk on water.
Yeah. But when you go through those, I look at it as like this. If you're in the military, or really even if you're a craftsman or anything, you learn your tools. You learn your tools, and you learn your tools to get your job done the way you see your job. But everybody has their favorite tools, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone now, like this is the one I use most
this
often
for everything.
This is this 3-pound hammer that I can either I can build a house, or I can hurt people.
Tweak
with
it, or I could destroy it
Yeah.
if it makes me mad enough.
But you find in yourself your go-tos. And these are, I look at them for me, the anxiety, but these are my go-to of trying to protect what I have crafted as my image in life. It is, and you have your go-tos. Anybody's out there listening, you have your go-tos. Maybe I have the number of guys come in every week to me and go, I have an anger problem, right? And as they beat the table, I have an anger problem. And I'm like, that's just become your go-to. You have others, but that's the one that you polished and you've worked, and it's kind of it's
somewhere along the line it rewarded. And
and you fed it, and so you get those years, you get those 30, 40 years in deep, and you're like, I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good. And that's the great lie, that you're really good at it and it's working for you. Look at all the houses I've built with just this tool.
Right. Well, and that touches on one of the other real quick, being unteachable. Once you've entrenched something like that, your pride says, I'm not going to change. It seems to work for me, or I know better, or whatever it is. But go ahead.
Yeah, no. So then, I think that's the part where you go to that idea of, how did I get so entrenched that this is the only tool that there is? And now, is it possible to use a new tool?
Yeah.
Is it possible that when somebody's critical of me, that I can just sit in it? Can I just sit in it? Is it possible that I don't have to have that last word? Is it possible that I can give the reins to somebody else and not be critical of how they're going to lead the team?
Right.
And I'm just going to sit and be part of the team. Is it possible for me to practice that? And up until this point, wherever you are in your life, you've created your own little masquerade to get you where you are. But chances are you've not accepted that God's made you and others the way He intended to do.
Yeah.
So
this is probably, I was thinking about saving this for the next episode of The Cure, but all these things, there's a fine line. There's righteous anger. We talked about anger earlier. There's righteous anger. Jesus expressed that. So how do you know the difference? How do you know in these areas? And I heard it years ago about a samurai master who was murdered. I might have told you this, but he was murdered. And one of his students decides he's going to hunt down the murderer and exact justice on the murderer. And he's got him on his knees, the head is bowed, the sword is drawn, and he's about to cleave the man's head off when the man turns and spits on him. And he sheathes the sword and walks away. See, in the instant before the spitting, it was an act of justice, righteous anger. But once he was spat on, it became personal.
Vengeance,
pride. He spit on him. Wrong motive.
Yeah.
And I try to reflect on that a lot, especially in today's times. There's so much that we should be righteously angry about.
Right.
How do we separate pride from righteous anger?
Yeah.
And I use that analogy in my head a lot. I'm always asking myself, are you the spit-y? Or are you the justice warrior?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
I like that a lot. And I think that's the whole part of forgiveness. Forgiveness.
Yeah.
Is that whole idea of being wronged, but no longer, you still want justice, but no longer seeking vengeance. Like you'll hear people say, I hope they burn in hell.
Yeah. You hurt me, I have to hurt you.
Yeah. And so that's why, no, you haven't forgiven yet. You haven't forgiven. But with forgiveness, there still should be justice, right? But when I'm trying to actually make somebody else hurt or pay the price, for that, that's
so. I guess you're toward wrapping this up.
Yeah.
And we're gonna talk about more of The Cure next time, and it's pretty developed. But I want to touch on the two things I said at the beginning of the show, if I could.
Yep.
Okay. So this is what I feel are two of the most tragic aspects of pride. And I was definitely guilty of this. One is when you hear somebody say, but as a Christian, you don't understand what I've done. And I've done a lot. To say, though, as a Christian, I want to try to stress this, to say that your sin is so big that Christ's sacrifice isn't enough. If you carry shame or guilt, that's not from God. There is no condemnation for those who are in Christ. So when people say this thing and they walk around, you will never experience, I can tell you personally, you will never experience the full joy of grace of God if you carry around this pride that your sin is bigger than what he could forgive. I can't stress this enough. If you haven't read Romans, read Romans. And if you need help understanding it, give one of us a note or get into it. But that is so tragic to me. I think it's...
Well, I think of how big do you think you are?
Oh.
That, if I walk into church, the lightning bolt's going to hit the church
Right.
because I'm here. Like, really? You're not that big.
You're not that big.
He's already covered us.
He's covered you, and far worse. I can guarantee you, if you have a genuine conversion, people wrestle with whether Hitler could go to heaven. If it was a genuine conversion,
I can't judge it.
you can't judge that. That you said, oh, that can't be. But for anybody to sit and think, oh, my sin's too big, that is probably one of the ultimate prides. I mean, it is bigger than probably anything we've listed here. These are what damage you at a family level, at an interpersonal level, at an emotional level. This is what damages you in your relationship with God.
Yeah.
And your ability to enjoy it. The other thing I'd say is, and we all hear this, I'm a good person. I'm a good person. And if you're one of those people out there, I'll just say this. The Bible's really clear. Our righteousness is but filthy rags. The whole purpose of the law, if you will, most people don't really catch this, is to knock you so squarely on your back that the only place you have is to look up to God, because we can't do it.
Yeah.
So pride says, I'm a good person. I'm a good person. And especially in comparison to them. You see this with, thank you, Lord, that I'm not
the taxpayer or the tax collector.
This pitiful individual next to me. Thinking you're a good person is not going to get you there. It's just not. And if you're doing that, even as you believe you're a Christian, we talked about this earlier. That passage where it says, "Lord, didn't I do this? Didn't I do that? Didn't I cast out demons?" And he says, "Depart from me, for I knew you not." Because what you're saying there is, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Two things that are devastating to Christians.
Well, I think the second one that you just mentioned there is the prideful trap, and I'm going to call it the lazy trap. I'm going to call it on the surface, it seems lazy. I'm good enough for what I do. I'm a good guy. I treat people fair. I follow the basic rules. I don't need to invest anymore in actually learning. Listen, I will tell you, and I'm not slamming the Catholic faith. This was my experience. I came through and at 32 years of age when my world started falling apart. Yeah. Up until that point, if you would have said, what does it take? What does your faith say about getting to heaven? I would have said, you just got to be a good person.
Yeah.
And not understanding the pride nature of you thinking, who do you get to be to evaluate what good is? Right, and what is good,
right,
and all of these things. But that is lazy. It allowed me to not have to actually go in and learn what it is that Christ did for us.
Oh yeah,
and the level of what the sacrifice paid for, right? And instead, it just dismissed it. It actually allowed me to not even have Christ in the picture. In fact, for a long time, I said, I believe in a superior being. The Christ thing, I don't know.
Yeah. It's more about works.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as long as I can outwork or do the work, I'm good. And that's just a pride statement there.
Well, when I got baptized, and I went on led men's ministry, and then it started a ministry. Did a lot of things. I remember I was hyperactive. Part of that grew out of when I got baptized. I came up out of the water. I said, it all stays there. So I'm surprised the water didn't turn black. But the next thought was, okay, God, I'll show you. I'll take it from here. My response should have been, thank you.
Yeah.
Because he said, you don't have to take it from here. I took it.
Yeah.
And I went about trying to justify and be a good person. And a lot of self-righteousness comes out of that. Once you start down that path, it's a religious pride that kicks in. And we see that play out between denominations, inside churches. It's, that's not grace. If you don't understand grace, I would love the opportunity.
We'll do a
talk
whole
with
show
you.
on that. What
Well,
do you
we
think?
could. Yeah. I didn't get it. And I've had people, lifelong Christians from strong backgrounds, fathers who were ministers, that in the course of 20 minutes, I opened their eyes to it, and I missed it. Most people miss it. So those two areas, I think, are really tragic, and I hope that we can help somebody past that.
So you may be a prideful jerk if so hopefully, guys, if we did this to hopefully just kind of vet out and get the idea of, listen, we're all in this. We are all in this. And it's so, you watch game film one day. You get Monday mornings to watch game film from the NFL Sunday game. And after that, on Monday mornings, you watched it and you get to beat yourself up. You get to say, I messed that up. I screwed that up. I should have done this. But then that's what we're going to talk about next show.
The cure.
The cure. Like, what are we going to do to move forward? What are we going to accept? And I should be careful saying, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
But what is our approach going to be so that we don't have to carry this garbage and we can be really much more of a free individual? Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah, that piece. I want to say something real quick, too. I didn't say it at the beginning. It sounds good. Your sponsors are all incredible. I just want to say the people behind them. I didn't say that last week. I thought about that. These people that support you in this ministry are incredible people. I would just say, if you get a chance, patronize them.
Yeah. I greatly appreciate you saying that. I mean, I think sometimes people just think that they're just people that are out there. Well, these are all good, solid community people and people of faith, and they just believe in this message. And they're all working on their own pride too, right? So they get this message. So, all right, guys, we do want to thank you again, and we ask that you listen to the show, but get ready for next week, because we're going to really bring up some good, or I should say next show, which is going to be in 2 weeks. And so we're going to really kind of work through the cure on this and hopefully give you some good stuff to chew on there. So
no, we will give them some good stuff.
Well, it depends on where their head is. Depends on where their head is. I got no choice in what people accept.
All right, we'll put it out there, and it's yours to take or not. So.
All right. So thanks for all you listeners. Go out there and be a strong dad.
Thank you.
Strong Dads wants to thank Quality Auto Mart and Service for being a proud sponsor of the Strong Dads podcast. Started in 1985 and going strong for all these years. Recently, Quality Auto Mart has transitioned from owners of Mark and Nancy Repke to longtime employee Fred and Lorraine Venus. For all your automotive needs and golf cart needs, check out Quality Auto Mart, located across from Indian Lakes on Highway 46 outside of Batesville, Indiana. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.